The Reinvention of Edison Thomas, Chapter 6, Part 2. Fact number 28 from the Random Access Memory of Edison Thomas. Listening to slow music can lower your heart rate, while music with a faster tempo can increase your heart rate. Eddie made it back to lunch on time. He pulled his lunch out of his backpack and felt something wet, a leaky ketchup packet. Luckily, it hadn't made too much of a mess, although Eddie had no idea how it could have gotten into his backpack. As he wiped his hands with the paper napkin from his lunch, he noticed that his mother had started making those annoying drawings on his napkins again. This one was a tap-dancing squirrel in a top hat. He crumpled it up and shoved it into his lunch bag just as Justin sat down next to him. He was relieved that Justin had a bologna sandwich instead of tuna. The bologna smelled pretty garlicky, but Eddie didn't mind. At least it wasn't fish. "So, Justin," said Eddie, "did you memorize the Morse code yet?" "No," said Justin. "I wish you would stop asking me that. I really don't see the point." "Oh, come on. It is no fun if only one person does it. Thomas Edison used it a lot. In fact, he named his first two kids Dot and Dash." "That's just cruel," said Justin. Eddie silently agreed. He knew what it felt like when your parents give you a stupid name. Edison Thomas was probably the stupidest name in existence, aside from Tank Engine Thomas. Dot and Dash were actually just nicknames, said Eddie. But still cruel, he thought. Suddenly, someone came running up behind them and tapped Justin on the head with a DVD case, saying, Look what I have." Once he got over his startle reflex, Eddie recognized Terry, the AV aide with the lapis lazuli blue hair, which had faded so that it now looked more like aquamarine. "What is it?" asked Justin. "It's Tron, the original Tron, my favorite movie of all time, and I'd get it for the whole weekend." Terry kissed the cover of the DVD, which Eddie supposed was not very sanitary. "Want to come over and watch it with me?" Sure," replied Justin. "Hey, Terry, this is Eddie." Terry looked over at Eddie and said, "Hi, how are you?" "So, Justin, can you come over tonight?" "I'll have to check with my folks," said Justin. "How did you get Tron anyway?" "Miss Petronelli ordered it by accident. Her class is studying the Iliad by Homer, and she wanted a documentary about ancient Troy, but they sent Tron." Eddie looked around to see if any teachers were nearby and whispered, "That DVD belongs to the school. You should not be taking it home." "I do it all the time," replied Terry. "The next shipment back to the district library isn't until Monday. As long as I get it to them in time for Monday's shipment, they're fine with it." "Hey, Eddie, do you want to come and see it too?" Eddie didn't see any reason to go to Terry's house to watch it. "I already have a copy of it myself. It is a classic." Eddie's collection of science fiction and fantasy DVDs naturally included Tron. Eddie didn't like the term science fiction because those films often included inaccurate or speculative science. He preferred to call them fiction science. The special effects were usually good, which was why he collected these films. "Yeah, an absolute classic," said Terry. "What's it about?" asked Justin. Terry explained. "This computer programmer gets inside a computer, and all the programs in the computer are people under the control of their users. They compete against each other. What makes it a classic is the way it looks. It's a milestone in computer animation." "Actually," said Eddie, "there was not as much CGI in Tron as most people think." "CGI?" asked Justin. "Computer-generated imagery," replied Eddie. A lot of the look of Tron was achieved by backlit animation, where black and white live-action film was colorized in rotoscope to make it look as if the action is taking place inside a computer. Eddie liked to figure out how the special effects worked in fantasy and fiction science films. Then he could find out if he was right by watching the special features on the DVD or looking it up on the internet. "It's kind of fun to watch now because it was all so futuristic at the time," said Terry. "When was it made?" asked Justin. "Sometime in the 80s, said Terry, looking at the DVD case to find the exact date. Eddie knew. 1982. Steven Lesberger directed it. "When you look at it now, everything looks so primitive and clunky," said Terry, "but it was way ahead of its time." "Yes, it was amazingly prescient," added Eddie. "Precious?" asked Justin. "Prescient," corrected Eddie. "What does that mean?" asked Justin. "It means it predicted a lot of the technology we have now. Like computer-generated language and language recognition, the internet, artificial intelligence, and computer viruses. Yeah, said Terry. Some people even say that Tron was the inspiration for the Matrix trilogy. What with the whole idea of living in a virtual reality controlled by a computer. The Matrix was released in 1999 and directed by Andy and Larry Wachowski, added Eddie. The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions were both released in 2003, and they were also directed by the Wachowskis. That's more than I wanted to know, said Justin. Are you sure you don't want to watch it with us, Eddie? Asked Terry. I am sure, said Eddie. I will just watch my copy. Suit yourself, said Terry. I gotta go. Call me after you talk to your folks, Justin. After Terry left, Eddie and Justin ate their lunches quietly. Eddie liked it when they just ate their lunches without talking. It let him concentrate on the task at hand, and he stood a chance of actually finishing his lunch. After a while, Justin asked Eddie, "Why don't you want to watch the movie with us?" "I told you," said Eddie. "I have a copy I can watch any time at my house." "It might be fun to watch it together," said Justin. "Don't you like Terry?" "He seems like a nice guy." Justin choked on his milk and began to cough. Eddie ran through the Heimlich maneuver in his head. If someone is choking, you are supposed to grab him from behind. Make a fist, wrap your other hand around the fist, place your hands between the navel and the rib cage. Thrust up into the diaphragm repeatedly until the object is expelled from the airway. But if the patient is coughing or able to talk, that means he can still get air and you shouldn't do the Heimlich. Justin wasn't coughing anymore. He was laughing. "What is the matter?" asked Eddie. Now Justin could have stopped laughing. Why? Was he laughing at Eddie? "What?" said Eddie. "Did I say something funny?" Justin finally calmed down enough to talk. He wiped a tear from his eye. Is he crying now? And said, "Terry's a girl."